for your Committee on Natural Resources to order. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize the indigenous owners of this land, the people who came before us, the ancient Chamorros and Carolinians who cared for this land, air, and waters, who protected the land and were responsible stewards of our island. May we be guided by their knowledge and values. Okay, today's agenda was issued on March 16 for our original meeting that was scheduled on March 23rd. A postponement notice for that meeting was issued on March 22nd due to the reconvening of our House session. So if there are no objections, can I get a motion to adopt today's agenda? We have a motion. It has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Ready? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Today's agenda has been adopted. Okay, before moving on to opening statements, I'd just like to go ahead and introduce our members and the Legislative Bureau staff that's here with us today. We have our Vice Chairwoman of the Natural Resources Committee, Rep. Benita Yang Tamay. We have Rep. Angel Damapan, Rep. Patrick Sanniquas, Rep. Richard Lozama, and Mr. Speaker, Edmund Villagomez. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our legal counsel today is Mr. Joe Tyrone, and our legislative assistant is Mr. Giovanni Taitano. Mr. John Diaz is helping us with our IT. We are streaming live on YouTube. The link is provided on Facebook, and we are also live on cable. Okay, so now moving on to opening statements. I'd like to open the floor for the members. If anyone would like to make an opening statement for today before we move on to public comments. No? Okay. No opening statements from our members. Okay, so today, before moving on to public comments, today's agenda, we are going to be entertaining House Joint Resolution 22-2 that was authored by Rep. BJ Attal and other members. This resolution strongly supports a delay in the proposed coral critical habitat designation process by National Marine Fisheries Service until such time as the 5-year coral status review and coral recovery plan can be completed, and have the Department of Lands and Natural Resources work in coordination with NMFS in identifying appropriate coral critical habitat for the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands using best scientific information available. And members, this is the only thing we will be entertaining today. And we now open the floor for public comments. Thank you, our Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Dwight, for assisting. Please state your name for the record, and you have 5 minutes to deliver your public comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. My name is Tony Benaventi. I'm the Secretary for the Department of Lands and Natural Resources. I know that this hearing is in regards to this House Joint Resolution 22-2, and we're hoping that this resolution will address the issues that we're having right now with the NOAA in regards to the critical habitat of coral reefs that have been determined here in the CNMI. Basically, out of the listing of 7 coral reefs that have been identified, only 3 have existed here in the CNMI. So this basically puts us to the point where we have to be mindful of this new proposed regulation that the federals are trying to implement on our waters. And we are not given ample time to kind of identify these areas that they so determine the critical habitats where they are. But please allow me to say something first before. It's an honor being up here again in the legislature. It's been a while. I have a little bit of goosebumps, Mr. Speaker, members of this great natural resources. Sometimes I wonder if I should still wear a necktie or not. But anyway, I'm glad to be back here, but I'm also happy to be here in front of you guys and address this matter. This is very critical, this House Joint Resolution. Not only that the CNMI is pushing forward for this new resolution, but as well as Guam and the American Samoa for reason that they too are affected with this critical habitat. And our proposed regulation, proposed implemented regulation by the feds is somewhat an issue to our side that we have our own rights to our water. We have our 3-mile designated submerged land rights. And with that, we should be determining what we have in our waters and to work with us as well. And let us know that this critical or this endangered corals are within where in particular in our waters that we want to identify and use that on our side, our legislation, our protection as well, and not having them saying, okay, so it's here, and then the entire surroundings of our land area is designated as critical habitat. But to the point that we have to really identify where this area is, because it seems that they address this, that we do have it, but where is it? And let us know so we can go out there and really visible or inspect the sites if it's really there, and find out if this new coral reefs are maybe in just certain location and not all over our surrounding island. So it affects our CNMI islands in terms of Tinian, Rota, and CNMI and the Northern Island as well. If you know that it only excludes all military areas. So in Tinian, it basically almost excludes the entire area that the military will be utilizing. And the affected areas is only that portion that, it belongs to the CNMI. So these are something that we wonder why these things are happening, to the point that they're not relating or trying to communicate with our side of our government and our department, and also to the other islands' new leadership. But these are very important that we address this matter, and let us work together with them so we can address the critical habitat on our side as well, and not to the point where it affects the entire surrounding of our islands. And that's to the point that we're here, and we look forward that this House Joint Resolution is passed and is strongly submitted to the federal government, and let them know that it's something that we have to work together and not just them doing what they want on our waters. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Secretary Benavente. Any other public comment? Please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My name is Manny Pangilinan, and I am the Director for the Division of Fish and Wildlife. I thank you and honorable members of the Natural Resources Committee and Mr. Speaker. I too is in strong support of House Joint Resolution 22-2. I think, as the Secretary mentioned earlier, that NOAA rushed this critical habitat proposal to designate areas in the CNMI, Guam, American Samoa, and other areas as for critical habitats without even consulting with us. Okay, that's the known fact. At least they did not consult with Fish and Wildlife. Okay, so that is more accurate. they didn't consult with our office. Okay. We hope that this joint resolution will send message to NOAA that we as the CNMI and the leadership of the CNMI are standing behind the departments and agencies who are tasked to manage natural resources, and in support of our effort to work with NOAA to make sure that if they finally are to decide which areas should be designated as critical habitat, that they did it in consultations with the department and the division, and that we have a say in the process of designating critical habitat here. Okay. We hope that this message also will encourage NOAA that they will have to base it based on best available science information. And we hope that they will use the 5-year status review before they come to a final conclusion in determining and finalizing the proposal for the critical habitat. I cannot stress strong enough that we have to have a unified position here in the CNMI in order for us to safeguard our natural resources. This is a time when we have to all get together behind the Department of Lands and Natural Resources and the Division of Fish and Wildlife so that we can have a much more stronger position when approaching our counterparts, the federal counterparts. So the critical habitat will have a lot of impact to future grants here in CNMI, not just for Fish and Wildlife, NOAA, or anybody for that matter, because they're saying that any federally funded federal actions will be affected by this critical habitat, be it line agencies or departments, or even an NGO, or even a private company, individuals who are applying any grants that has to do with in-water work activity. That will be impacted. This is just another layer of bureaucracy that NOAA, that the federal government is just instituting to provide amongst a pile of regulations already in place, not to mention the regulations that are in place in the federal side, but also the local side. You know, we do have enough regulation as it is already in the books that we don't need additional regulation, but be as it may, the federal government has decided, because it is part of the Endangered Species Act, that when they designate a critical habitat, designate a species as threatened or endangered, they have to also, within a given time frame, to be accompanied with designating critical habitat. If that's so let's work together as partners. Let's send a message that we should work as partners, not as an individual trying to dictate here in the CNMI what is good and where is it that we're supposed to designate as critical habitat. And again, Madam Secretary, I ask you and your honorable members here to expedite the passage of this House Joint Resolution 22-2, so that when we make our final comment, we can accompany this joint resolution with our comment. Be advised that the Secretary received a letter from Michael D. Casado, Regional Administrator, on March 19, giving us an extension, a 60-day extension from March 27. That means our new deadline for submitting the comment would be on May 26 this year. So we hope to see that the joint resolution is passed, and that we can have it way in advance in our hands, so that when we packaging our comment, we have it in place. Thank you, Madam Secretary, honorable members, and Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Pangilinan. Members, the letter that Mr. Pangilinan referred to from the U.S. Department of Commerce has been provided to you. I just wanted to say that for the record. Thank you, Mr. Pangilinan. Any other public comments? I recognize Mr. John Gurley. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is John Gurley. I'm with Micronesian Environmental Services, the company not associated with the Murphy dump. I have to say that these days. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to provide our comments toward this important resolution. I wanted to give you all a kind of a little brief history that leads up to the situation we're in. I think it's important to understand that this is not our fault. It's basically due to the faulty actions of NIMS on this. The corals were listed in 2014, and as Manny mentioned, by regulation, they're supposed to designate critical habitat soon after or combined with the actual listing of the corals as either threatened or endangered. Well, NIMS did not do that. So here we are 7 years later, and NIMS was taken to court by our friends in Arizona, CDB, Center for Biological Diversity, and NIMS is now designating critical habitat because of a court action. Now, what's happened is that they are also at the same time conducting a 5-year status review on the corals that they identified as threatened as occurring in our water. This status review basically collects all the new information on these corals, distribution, life history, spawning, abundance, everything, and reevaluates whether or not the initial listing as threatened is still relevant. They are also working on a recovery plan at the same time. So we have the unique situation where we are designating critical habitat, looking at new information, and developing a recovery plan all at the same time. With respect to critical habitat, we have the horse before the cart. No, we don't. We have the cart before the horse. That was a bad slip. Because when we designate critical habitat, we need to have all the information in front of us in order to make an educated and informed decision on where the critical habitat should be designated. And this is not happening. So that's why this resolution is important. Now, the resolution indicates a position that you members of the legislature takes. Whether or not NIMS is going to do it, whether or not they're allowed to do it, is kind of irrelevant at this point, but it's the position that you're taking that we believe in best scientific information available. It should be made available to us prior to designating critical habitat. And I tell you, once critical habitat is designated by NIMS, it is extremely difficult to get them to modify it. It's with you for a long time. So we want to do it right. We want to participate. We want to actually help NIMS. And one of the reasons how we can help NIMS is that when you look, I gave 3 other briefing books. If you look at the official critical habitat maps that NIMS submitted, they basically took like a 3-inch felt tip pen and then followed the coastline around each island. Okay, when you look at the details of Saipan Lagoon, that includes all of Saipan Lagoon. So they're calling the area around the Sado Kasi wastewater treatment outfall critical habitat. The outfall structure itself has been exempted, but they're calling all that area where the sewer is pumped into critical habitat. You know that that's not true. The areas fronting our stormwater drains, critical habitat. No, it's not. Also, too, there's a really big sandy area out by just north of Managaha, a very large sandy area that's designated proposed critical habitat. It's not. The corals don't grow on bare sand, for the most part. There's always exceptions. So what we did is Manny has got his GIS person, we have actually using NIMS data. They should have done this. We're using NIMS bottom substrate data to map out areas of the substrate that do not support corals. So we're going to give that back to NIMS and say, hey, look, this is what you need to use for critical habitat designation. And you didn't do it. So by simply had they coordinated with us earlier, they would have found all this out. Instead, we have had to fight for every tooth and nail and every deadline extension that we have gotten on this, and that's been, I believe, 3 deadline extensions. It's just too much information in too little time to absorb, to protect both the court, make sure that the critical habitat designation is accurate for the corals, and to protect us for unnecessary regulatory actions for future harbor improvements. That's all I have. I do support the resolution. I hope you all do too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gurley. Thank you, Secretary and Director. You may be excused from the House chamber. The floor is still open for public comments. Anyone in the gallery interested in making any public comments related to House Joint Resolution 22-2, supporting a delay in the proposed critical habitat designation? You may enter the gallery. I'm sorry, the chamber, if you'd like to make any public comments. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning, committee, Chair Babauta, and the rest of the committee. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to have just a few minutes of your time this morning. Generally speaking, I don't have a lot to add other than what Mr. Gurley was speaking about. The Friends do believe that there is more analysis required and warranted in this situation, so we are in support of the Joint House Resolution. The most critical things, without going into a lot of detail, that were provided to us by external analysis are to comment on the fact. I'm sorry, did I say that this is Lori Paterka? I'm sorry. My name is Lori Paterka. I'm representing the Friends of the Marinus Trench as the Executive Director and speaking on behalf of the board this morning. I apologize for that. So the critical concerns for us is that additional analysis is warranted, that the jurisdictions that are being identified, as Mr. Gurley was speaking about, are all in state waters, not in federal waters, that the military exemptions are a problem, and that this is an unfunded mandate, so there's nothing behind it. If any additional support or request for scientific information is needed that you don't have access to, we're willing to facilitate to try to obtain that information and work in cooperation with anyone else. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Paterka. Thank you for your comment. The floor is still open for public comments. Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Hello everyone, David Beneventi with the Marianas Islands Nature Alliance. Our position is to support this resolution. A lot of the data provided was not clearly identified, so there are data gaps that have been addressed, but still there's more data to be collected. There is local data available, which was not listed in their proposal. So I think better analysis and also attempts to collect locally managed data would be useful, and also working alongside the management agencies, because like John Gurley said, they blanketed over the entire coastline, which is not accurate. There are a lot of areas along the coast that aren't habitable to corals, and just to do that would be really hard, because in the future, like John said, modifying this this proposal would be really hard for us. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Beneventi. Thank you for your comment. The floor is still open for public comments. Okay, there are none. The floor is now closed for public comments, and we will move on to discuss the House Joint Resolution. So at this time, I'd like to open the floor to members for discussion. Okay. Go ahead, I recognize Rep. Lozano.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And thank you for the President of the Land and Natural Resources. As they stated, they have, what do you call it, support this bill, so I think it would be fine to go ahead and accept your recommendation, and I'm going for a yes on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rep. Lozama. Thank you, Chairman. Anyone else? Any members? I recognize Rep. Demakan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to thank also the DLNR Secretary, the Division of Fish and Wildlife Director, Mr. Gurley, Ms. Paterka, Mr. Benavente, for your feedback and comments today. I think it's very helpful for this committee to understand the historical background and the potential ramifications of moving forward without due diligence. I do want to make a comment that although there appears to be no problem in supporting this resolution, which is supporting a delay, I think that it's very important also for the stakeholders who appeared before this committee today to continue to engage with us, this committee, and especially the members of the legislature throughout the process, because I think that even after we're successful at getting a delay in this process, the process will go on at some point. And I think that we have to continue to be vigilant and defend our rights as people of the Marianas, especially. Looking at these maps, it's very troubling. It's very disappointing that they've essentially covered every single area that is not DOD land, and basically have taken that into consideration for designation. Historically, we've seen in the past that conservation is trumped by security, by national security. And at some point in my previous term, I also brought up the issue of whether conservation designations are being used as a guise for future national security use. It's troubling because we are very fragile and remote islands here. We're very small. And anytime you try to take a small piece of what belongs to the Marianas, it's significantly impactful to the people, to our way of life. And we have to continue to be vigilant in making sure that these efforts are not successful against us. So I wanted to thank you guys for being here today and for giving your feedback throughout this whole process. This whole set of documents we have before us are very informative. And like Representative Lozama, I too, Madam Chair, I'm ready to support this resolution and ready to support this effort in the long run. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rep. Demakan. Any other members? No? Members and legal counsel, I would like to bring your attention to page 2, line 17. So that paragraph of the whereas, it states, whereas NMFS rejected the 3 territorial governors' requests for a 90-day extension of the public comment period and instead provided only a 30-day time extension. Because we did receive that letter from NOAA that was addressed to the Secretary of DLNR, dated March 19, 2021. Can I get an offer to amend or remove this section since we were granted a 60-day extension?
But it's up to 90.
Point of clarification, Madam Chair. So this part of line 17 talks about the rejection of the territorial governor's request. That request was made, I think, in January. So I think that for background information, that should remain, but we should
Okay.
include a new whereas where Mr. Tosado grants the extension in response to Secretary Benaventi's March 12 letter. That way we have a chronological order of events there.
Agreed. Sounds good. Okay, so shall we, do I hear a motion for some language?
Yeah, I just maybe rewind 30 seconds. I was talking to Bono, but are you saying that I agree that the governor's request was in fact denied, and apparently Secretary Benavente has more pull, and he's got 60 days rather than 90. So I concur. Your comment is correct. This is in fact still true, but we do need an additional paragraph which would indicate that in response to Benevente's letter, which maybe we have a copy of that, so we can reference when it was sent out,
There you go.
that there was a response in response to, so we'll have the LA working with me draft a paragraph that reflects the March 19 letter. Oh no, I'm looking for the Benavente letter, so we can reference that request that you're referring to. Becca? Okay. So apparently on December 16, 2020, Secretary Anthony Benavente wrote to Mr. Sato. It's December 16, 2020?
There's a March 12 letter that we probably, I'm not sure we'll share that.
Okay.
But the Sato's better references on March 12.
Okay.
I do not have a copy of the March 12th letter. Okay, so that is something we can request from Secretary Benavente.
I see the March 12th reference in the March 19 letter from
Right.
Sato. Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, I think that we should get that content on that site. We will get more updated on communication.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, agreed. So once we get that, we can, but even still, the December 16 request from Benavente is what's, I guess, he asked for 60 days in his December 16 letter, and he got it.
Okay, so Mr. Paisano, can you please make that request to Secretary Benavente to provide a copy of the March 12th letter that he wrote to Mr. Sisson? Yes?
And does the committee just want to take the Sato's word for it, that it was the March 12th letter? And it doesn't really matter. It's just 60 days to 60 days, right?
Madam Chair, can I have a short recess?
Sure.
Sure.
How is that?
So, Mr. Gurley has some information on that. He's raising his hand right here.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, I did not see. Do you have information regarding the March 12th letter from Secretary Benavente?
I'm hoping I can clear it up. That letter dated March 12th is actually from Secretary Benavente from the CNMI, Soliai from American Samoa, and Chelsea over in Guam. It is a one-page letter that is jointly signed by all three
Okay, so now at this time, legal counsel, can you please share the proposed language?
Yeah, John, can we hook it up to the?
Turn on TV.
Hook up finals computer?
So let me see it.
Yeah. Do we turn it off? No, it's on. So that's okay, Chair. Basically, on line 17 through 19, it reads, whereas NIMS rejected the 3 territorial governors' request for 90-day extension, we duplicated that paragraph, and after we basically cut and pasted it again, we changed the NIMS language, or we changed the language to reflect that another request dated March 19 was sent by the 3 agency heads from Guam, American Samoa, and CNMI. And that March 19 request was for an additional 60-day comment period, which was granted. So the actual language in the resolution will be reflected in an amendment. Basically on line 19, we will insert the following language. Whereas on March 19, 2021, NIMS denied the Territorial Resource Agency head's request for a postponement of critical habitat designation until such time that the ongoing ESA 5-year status review has been completed, and instead granted a 60-day extension of the public comment period, comma, and then the resolution continues. So that's the new language we're adding after line 19.
Which page?
Page 2.
Yes. Page 2, it'll be inserted after line 19. Thank you, legal counsel. Can I get a motion for this amendment?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
There is a motion. It has been seconded. Discussion on this motion. Ready? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The amendment is passed. Thank you. Now, moving back to the main discussion on House Joint Resolution 22-2. Can I get a motion for its passage?
Move to pass.
There is a motion,
And
and it has been seconded. Discussion on this motion.
Ready?
Ready? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Joint Resolution 22-2 has been adopted.
As amended.
Okay, thank you, members. Now moving on to our agenda, we have announcements. Any announcements by our members?
Good job, Arno.
No? Okay, I do want to inform the members that we have 5 House bills currently in our committee. And comments have been solicited by over 30 agencies. So we are awaiting comments, and in about 2 or 3 weeks, I did give them a deadline. In about 2 or 3 weeks, we will call for another committee meeting so that we can entertain the House bills and get them out of this committee. Okay?
Yes. Can you give us the numbers, please?
Yeah.
House bill numbers, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Ali. I do have this on the computer. Great. You will make a copy. Thank Thank you, Mr. Tysonal. Mr. Tysonal will provide a copy to all members. We do have House Bill 22-22, authored by our NR member, Rep. Angel Macan. House Bill 22-31, submitted by JT Guerrero. Rep. Macan. Guerrero. House Bill 22-32, also authored by Rep. Macan. House Bill 22-43, authored by Rep. Joel Camacho, and House Bill 22-44, also authored by Rep. Joel Camacho. You're welcome, and Mr. Tysonal will be passing out a hard copy of that list.
Sure.
Okay, members. Also, I just wanted to update the members that I did meet with Marian Sarajevo, the Secretary of DPL, on the 29th, just to receive some updates from our briefing. So the Marianas Resort lease, a notice of selection was issued to ELEN. And DPL will continue to proceed with the lease documents and working with the AG's office, even though there is an objection to that notice of selection. The DNW lease, and that concern with that lease being expired has been addressed with a written opinion by the AG's office. DPL is preparing a new lease, and they are awaiting additional documents from DNW. They will be required to pay a new rate, and because it is a new lease, it will not need to come through the legislature. Yes, recognize, Rep. Lozama?
Yeah, so when the new lease, that means another whole 25, 40 years? Is that what the new lease means?
Yes, and that is something they are working on right now,
Right.
the details of the new lease
Right.
and how long it will be.
So I hope they still honor our request with these public benefits. Remember? What we
Yes.
asked for. Yeah, so I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Lozama. Yes, anytime a new lease is being drafted, DPL does ensure that the public benefit portion is included and the commitments are made. Okay, so Parks and Recreation, it was temporarily moved under DPL, right, from DLNR, but it has been transferred back to DLNR as of the 29th. So any projects or requests to Parks and Recs should be made to Secretary Benventi. Yes.
I'm a
Yes, recognize, Rep. Lozama?
Since they are done the transfer back, before they transfer back to DNR, they transfer to public land. Is that mean because the DNR didn't have the money and then we use the public land money that anybody knows about that issue?
Well,
Now that the governor says, okay, everybody's going back to 80 hours, so they move back to the corporate agencies or department, right? So
yes, to my understanding,
I just wonder
yes.
if they have used, public money, with the money that the public lands are supposed to use it properly, appropriately. But I'm just wondering.
Yeah, so DPL temporarily covered the payroll of Parks and Recreation because of insufficient funds. That's because Parks and Recs, they're responsible for public lands, right? The maintenance and upkeep of public lands. I think, in my opinion, that's a good place for them to be so that they are fully funded as operations and considered operations of DPL. But at this time, they have moved back to DLNR. Yes, recognize Reverend Tamar?
Did you ask about Manico?
Yes. So the Mainagaha announcement was canceled and postponed. They plan to re-announce that in 2 weeks because, let me just pull up some information. Because the original announcement failed to address some concerns that DPL had, and that was, some examples are the rates of reimbursement between DPL and the concessionaire, commitments to be required by the concessionaire, flexibility during the pandemic for both concessionaire and DPL. So the proposal didn't address those concerns, and DPL wanted to include that in the proposal. And in order to do that, they had to cancel that announcement, and it will be republished by the end of April 16 or sooner. Thank you for that question. Okay, and we did speak of the agricultural lots on Tinian, Rep. Patrick. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Secretary did have a meeting with the Tinian leadership to reduce the size of the agricultural lots, just to meet the applicant requests. And so they spoke of reducing it from 10,000 to 5,000 square meters. She will be writing a letter to the mayor by the end of next week. And on April 13, they will be on Tinian as they were summoned.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that.
You're very welcome. Okay, so that is all the announcements I have for now. Anything else committee members have to announce or discuss? None? Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you for that motion to adjourn. Any discussion on that motion?
Second.
It's been seconded. Thank you. Discussion?
Ready.
Okay, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
So we will just await the comments to come back, no?
Yeah.
No, Rep. Angel, you do have a bill in the committee, so we want to get that out.